Good afternoon, good evening, morning. Yeah, so this session, this is a recorded session on two chapters. The first one is on uh, the pharmacology or the drugs that are acting on the nervous system. Then it will be followed by drugs that are used for uh, wait for hematologic and coagulation conditions, related conditions. So let's start with uh, chapter 11, the drugs that are acting on the nervous system. When we talk about the nervous system, we're referring to the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. So that means the brain and spinal cord for the CNS, central nervous system, and the rest, which includes the nerves, the peripheral nerves, cranial nerves, the tracts, so the ganglia. So those are all under the peripheral nervous system. So this system is responsible for controlling all the activities happening in the body, including sensation, motor or movement, activities, behavior, and thought. So we will be limiting the conditions that will be covered or discussed in this discussion or lecture. The following: seizures and epilepsy, anxiety and depression, Parkinson's disease, schizophrenia, insomnia, and pain. So let's start with epilepsy. Epilepsy is a condition wherein there is too much electrical activity that is being produced by the brain or the nervous system, leading to seizures. So sometimes maybe you have seen someone having an epileptic attack. So this is usually characterized by tonic-clonic seizures. That is to say, tonic referring to the uh, contraction, involuntary contraction of the muscles, usually of the arm, and the jerking movement that we see of the legs or the feet is the clonic aspect of epilepsy. So tonic-clonic seizures, general tonic-clonic seizures. Uh, so maybe you have also heard of absence seizures. So absence seizures is very much different from the typical seizures that we know because the person appears to be daydreaming. Okay, and for there are certain other types of seizures, but we're not going to talk much about them. Instead, uh, we're just going to talk only about seizures in general. Okay, so seizures are classified into focal seizures and generalized seizures. If one part of the brain is affected, for example, temporal seizure, so that means that only the temporal region of the brain is affected. But if the entire brain is affected, that means there is damage to the entire brain. So that is classified as generalized seizures. For the drugs that are used for treating seizures, we have the following. We have some examples. We're not going to take up all. For example, phenytoin. Phenytoin stabilizes the neuronal membranes. So that means that even if the brain is producing a lot of these electrical signals, it is still being controlled by not producing too much of that action potential. I hope you try to review what we mean by action potential. The problem with phenytoin is that it has its narrow therapeutic index, meaning in high levels, in very high levels, it can be toxic, and in low levels, it can be ineffective. So that is why it is necessary to monitor this in the laboratory, the level of phenytoin in the blood. The next one is valproic acid. It increases GABA. Okay, GABA is short for gamma-aminobenzoic acid, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. And for the notes, we need to know that valproic acid has its hepatotoxic effect, meaning it can damage your liver and should also be avoided in pregnancy. Every time we mention of avoiding a drug because of pregnancy, we have to associate it either with teratogenicity, so meaning it can lead to malformation of uh, the baby, okay, or yeah, there are developmental problem happening in the baby, or maybe it can be harmful to the woman, to the pregnant woman itself, herself. Next is carbamazepine. So carbamazepine is more commonly known as Tegretol. Okay, it blocks the sodium channels and therefore there will be no action potentials that will be generated in if you are taking carbamazepine. The problem with the carbamazepine is that it can cause blood dyscrasia. So by blood dyscrasia, we mean that there is an abnormality in the uh, the blood, okay, the blood cells especially. Phenobarbital. So it's a barbiturate classification of drug. So what it does is that it enhances the effect of gamma-aminobenzoic acid. However, it can, the intake of this drug can lead to sedation and that it has a long half-life. So drugs with long half-life must be monitored under therapeutic drug monitoring because it may lead to overdosage. Another condition is anxiety and insomnia. Okay, so by anxiety, we mean that the person is experiencing persistent worry or fear. And for insomnia, so maybe some of you have insomnia, so that means that you are experiencing a difficulty in falling asleep or staying asleep. The drugs that we can utilize for these conditions are the following. So benzodiazepines like diazepam and lorazepam, Ativan. So they enhance gamma-aminobenzoic acid activity and may cause sedation, very similar to the previous type of drugs. Then we have the non-benzodiazepines, but they are classified as hypnotics. So that means it can have an effect on the activity of the brain. Zolpidem, as an example. It is short-acting and less addicting compared to benzodiazepine. Antidepressant. So it addresses the problem of depression, like SSRI. SSRI is short for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Okay. An example is fluoxetine. This is used for the treatment of anxiety. Okay. Benzodiazepine, remember, can lead to addiction or dependence and drowsiness, that's sedation, and respiratory depression. So if there is respiratory depression, so there may be, this is one of the priorities in medicine, respiration. So that may also lead to, uh, respiratory alkalosis or acidosis, depending. Okay, well, if it's depression, so that could be acidosis. Benzodiazepine, okay, so we have talked about that. Next is 11.5, depression. So, of course, what we use for depression would be classified as antidepressant. So, what is depression? Depression is when someone, so this is a mood disorder characterized by symptoms like sadness, loss of interest, and fatigue. So some examples of drugs that can be used are, we have mentioned of SSRI like fluoxetine, and now we're adding sertraline. So they inhibit the reuptake of serotonin by the transmitted by the receptors. Then TCA, short tricyclic antidepressant. Example is amitriptyline. It blocks norepinephrine and reuptake of serotonin. Next one is MAOI, short for monoamine oxidase inhibitor, so which is an enzyme inhibitor. So that MAO for monoamine oxidase is an enzyme that converts, the catecholamines to its end product, one of the two enzymes. So example of MAOI is menelzine, so it inhibits that enzyme. Then we have atypical antidepressants like bupropion and mirtazapine. So they have many different variable actions, but we're not going to talk much about them, okay? So as long as you know that they are not similar to the other types of antidepressants. By the way, regarding the utilization of antidepressants, you have to know that a person who is depressed can be both depressed uh, physically and what else? Wait, so I'm getting some prompts from our from Teams. Anyway, so yeah, so I'm done. So if someone is suffering from depression, so there is a big chance that the person might think of suicide. So the problem is, the thing is, these antidepressants can actually target both the physical and the mental forms of anxiety the person is experiencing. But they are more effective against physical anxiety. So that means that the physical symptoms of anxiety is relieved first, and the person is still experiencing mental anxiety. That is why, okay, the chance that so that uh, suicide may be uh, considered by the person is higher if they are taking these antidepressants. So, what else? So, serotonin syndrome, overdose or drug interactions may actually cause agitation, tremors, and hyperthermia. 11.6, schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a psychotic disorder. Okay, so characterized by the positive and the negative symptoms. So we actually call them positive and negative symptoms. Anyway, so this includes hallucinations, delusions, and disorganized behavior. There are several types of schizophrenia. We're not going to talk about them. But, well, at least you know that there are types of schizophrenia, and we usually treat them with the same antipsychotics, classified as typical and atypical antipsychotics. For the typical antipsychotics, we have Haldol or haloperidol and chlorpromazine. So these are very common in the Philippines. The thing about them is that they can cause EPS, which is short for extrapyramidal syndrome or symptoms. So that means that the person has these robotic types of movement, which are very rigid, and there may also be some tremors. Okay, sedation is also another thing that can be experienced by persons taking typical antipsychotics. Then we have the atypical antipsychotics. Examples are risperidone and olanzapine. So there is lesser of that extrapyramidal syndrome, but the person might experience weight gain and even diabetes. So that is why we need to monitor the activity okay, the level of the lipids in the blood glucose, the prolactin levels, because they may indicate problems or disorders associated with the intake of those drugs. 11.7, Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease is a condition, chronic condition, progressive in nature, meaning as one gets older, the the worse it becomes. So this is because of damage to the cortex of the brain, leading to loss in the production of dopamine in the brain. So it leads to tremors, stiffness, and slow movement. A person with Parkinson's disease would manifest, for example, a particular gait, shuffling gait, or even yung steps. The steps are very narrow steps. Then the posture is leaning forward. What else? Uh, there is lack of facial expression. Yeah, so that is Parkinson's disease. For Parkinson's, the treatment is to give L-DOPA, short for levodopa, and carbidopa. So they replace dopamine, and even carbidopa prevents the breakdown of dopamine. But that means they increase the level of dopamine, which is lacking or missing in people with Parkinson's. The problem with carbidopa is that, yes, it is effective maybe during the first years of treatment, but there is a decline in its effectiveness as we use this medication. Insulin. This is a MAO inhibitor. So again, MAO is monoamine oxidase type B. In this case, that leads to an increase in the dopamine levels in the blood. Next one would be anticholinergics. So anticholinergics, that means it is now attacking or preventing the activity of acetylcholine. So that leads to reduction in the tremors experienced by younger patients. Long-term use of L-DOPA may cause dyskinesia, which is a term meaning involuntary movements. Then finally, we have pain management. So pain is otherwise known as analgesia. So drugs that are used for pain are called analgesics. Pain is what? A negative an experience that is subjective in nature. So it's a subjective experience that is uh, mm, well, people don't want to experience pain definitely. So, and since this is subjective, so we typically ask the patient for the level of pain. We can take as mild pain or moderate pain or severe pain because the choice of analgesic would depend on the level of pain. And most of these analgesics also work as antipyretics. That means they can also reduce the fever experienced by this patient. All right. So these pain drugs or pain relievers, as we call them, can be classified into non-opioid, opioid, and adjuvants. For the non-opioid, so this is the lowest form of pain relievers. So this is classified or characterized by paracetamol, or exemplified by paracetamol, also known as acetaminophen, and non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. We have talked about them. Again, what we need to remember when we are taking this drug is that they must be taken, okay, usually orally, okay, with food. Because if we don't, that might lead to gastric irritation. Next, we have opioid analgesics. So examples are morphine and codeine. So this is for severe pain. So, and then we have the adjuvants. So adjuvants like amitriptyline, gabapentin. So these are actually precursors or inhibitors for certain uh, neurotransmitters. So this is for neuropathic pain. Well, pain can be described in many ways. So if a person asks you, what type of pain are you feeling? So there is what we call stabbing pain. It's like there is a knife inserted onto your body, stabbing pain. So there may be burning pain. What else? There are so many. Crushing pain, crashing pain. So those are, depending on how you exactly feel, can describe the pain, radiating pain, so on. Uh, so if you are going to use opioids like, well, tramadol is maybe the lowest, the least potent among the opioid analgesics, tramadol. So still there is a chance of addiction, respiratory depression, and constipation. So liver and kidney function should be monitored, okay, if we intend them, okay, long term. So that is the first part. I have actually, this is my second attempt to record this presentation because the first one I did not see that it is muted. My microphone is muted. So yeah, so this is the second attempt now. I'll be uploading this in YouTube. So because most of the time this is not accessible, okay, in Teams. Thank you for listening. Just utilize the handout that is provided. So this is just a sort of podcast. So the next one, I still have another topic to cover, but let me divide the presentation or video presentation into two, recorded presentation rather. Bye bye.